Good morning, all, or happy lunchtime for my friends in Southdowns and others of you living in the future. And of course, yay daylight savings time for those of us who got an extra hour of sleep last night. And welcome to Calbert's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Cal. I am Baron Geiler, Companion Meridian Cross, Companion Argent Comet, Companion Compostela, and Reaper, coming to you live from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. Now, for this episode, this potentially emotionally charged episode, I am joined by an artisan with some opinions. Please welcome Lady Eyvor Halldorsdottir. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. Well, as Cal said, my name is Eyvor, and I am an artisan who lives in the Barony of Tir in bright and sunny Atenveldt, a land that does not believe in daylight savings like sane human beings.
I concur.
Yes. It makes life very fun, except now I have to remember if I'm mountain or Pacific.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, okay, look, if we're gonna do it, let's all do it. Or if we're not, we're not. There should not be in between. Or like, where's one of them that does like it's a half-hour difference?
Yeah.
Like, what crackpot made that decision? Because somebody was nuts that day.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a wonderful West Wing episode where they talk about it. I'm blanking on which one exactly, but I always think of that. They like miss it because they're in the area that doesn't observe daylight savings.
Right.
One of the best.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. I'm telling you, campaign for King of the World. It's happening one day. Anyways.
I will support you. Happily.
Well, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate you being here. I'm looking. I feel like I'm repeating myself. I'm looking forward to today's topic, but I'm always looking forward to hearing what people have to say about their various passions. And today's show is going to be a passionate one. So, but before we get into that, we have a very important thing to discuss first, and that's our coffee, because today's show is coffee themed. Mm-hmm. So today I went back to a classic favorite of mine of some flavors of fall. I have the cinnamon and hazelnut from New England Coffee. Of course, drinking out of my Feed the Ravens mug from my Westie Bessies. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
And I have a Black Market Desert City Dark, which is from Cartel Coffee Lab, who is a roaster up in Tempe. Also a Feed the Ravens mug. I believe this was one I managed to score in the last year during when they were doing some subscription stuff. So yeah, I managed to get in on that one. So I'm happy because it's a nipple mug. And I think I have one other, but
wait, hold on. I see the nipples now. Okay.
Yeah.
I see the nipples.
As you know, once you end up with a Dabrushka mug, you sort of end up with a lot of Dabrushka mugs.
We only have two in the house currently. I think I'm far enough away that I haven't gotten the full like brunt of the exposure.
We've bought from them at multiple Estrellas and at Penzix, and we have jumped on things on sales, and we have acquired things.
They're just so good. By the way, this show is not sponsored by Feed the Ravens, but support Feed the Ravens. They are amazing.
They're amazing. Yes, the pottery can be very hard to get at times, but anything you buy out of them is going to be absolutely epic. We use a lot of it in our daily lives.
Yep. So yeah, I have this one, and I never want to take it to an event because I don't want to break it. So like I only use it for coffees on this show, and it goes right back on the shelf when I'm done, which I feel bad about, but also I don't want to break it. So there's a balance there, I think.
Mercifully, one of our dear friends does kintsugi, and she has repaired a couple of Feed the Ravens mugs.
Yeah. So
I feel better.
Because which is cool, and I think that would be like when I break this one, that's gonna happen because it's a win, not an if. It's exactly. When I break this one.
Yeah. I've got one that I need to repair the handle on, and it's just been sitting in my kitchen, and I just have to get around to being like, all right, I'm showing up this weekend. Let's do this. Since it's like several month long process.
All right, so now we have all those things out of the way. Mm-hmm. Let me type a thing. So if you were watching, please let us know in the comments who you are, where you're from. And also, throughout the show, if you have any questions, either for myself or our guest or just about the topic, please drop them in the comments along with your name and titles and things so we can bring them up because these shows work better with audience participation, and we want to hear your snarky questions. Ivor, today's topic for I saw when you came to me with this, and I was like, "This is a good one. I like this one." I'm a baby artisan in the SCA. I've done some scroll work. I've done some. I do a lot of like largesse things, right? But I would not call myself an artisan per se, because I'm not the one people come to when they need something. I occasionally just participate in contests and things. However, when you brought this like emotional labor thing to me, I was like, holy crap, that's a thing. Because I realized even I, as a baby artisan, was like participating because I want the credit and the love of the kingdom was the thing I was desiring. And I was like, this is a thing we need to talk about. So so for you, what is the, I guess, antithesis or sort of the start of this conversation for you?
So I'm gonna probably have to give a bit of backstory on sort of how I started thinking about it, which is that over the last 18 months or so, I've been following a number of mundane artists and people who do things like knitting and who do specifically fiberwork, sewing as well. And we're talking like bespoke, that. And there's been a discussion, and I've seen it over the years, and I've seen the discussion, and it's been talked about, and it's like, hey, this work isn't valued. We can't price it what really it should be based on time and expertise and materials. We can't price it at that because people aren't going to buy it. It's not that it isn't worth it. It's just that flat out people are so used to paying dirt cheap money for this that they're not going to, that when you confront them with something that's actually reasonably priced, or they're not going to.
Right.
And so with that, I kind of got thinking, conversations I'd had specifically with a number of laurels, which full disclaimer, I am an apprentice. I would love to be a laurel one day. God's willing, we'll see where things go. But a lot of them made comments to the effect of, when I was working to become a laurel, the amount of work that I did, I sewed for people, I gave huge amounts of largesse, I gave all of this, almost reached a point where it burned them out. So they got the laurel and they stopped. Mm-hmm. It just, because it was like, okay, I've done my deal. We're that. And I got thinking, I've said before, and I'll say it again, I genuinely believe one of the best things about the SCA is its generosity. The amount of work that goes into things, if you start putting a mundane price tag on it, like you have to insure it or something, it's really kind of scary. I mean, we've got knives that are made by friends. My husband's eventually getting a sword. I mean, his plurican, his scroll for his double elevation is entirely handmade, and the gold leaf came from Thailand. And which, in defense on that one, my mother and my family was there, so they brought it back. But it
made it a little easier, at least. Yeah.
Marginally, yeah. I gather it was a pain in the ass to work with, so I am eternally grateful for that one. But and all of this stuff is given. There's no monetary, there isn't a monetary transaction. It's not, can you pay for cover materials and, at least materials for it? And in talking as well later with artists, there are people I've spoken with who've been like, yeah, I don't do largesse, and I've gotten shunned almost or chewed out for it because I can't afford to provide the materials.
Right.
Okay, this is a problem. Flat out. And that's sort of where it started. And then it's been stewing for a bit. How do we deal with it? And, if you're capable and you're in a spot where and you want to give your stuff freely, not ask for anything, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. Far from it. But what I'm saying is I think that there should be at least an awareness of how much goes into this. And I say emotional labor because for so much of the work, you really do put yourself into it. It's not done and gone. It's a piece that always someone's going to look at and go, so-and-so made this for me.
Well, because and there is physical labor that goes into it. Time and money are a thing. But I think, you're right. There's a lot more of the emotion that goes into it than maybe the physical labor. And for the Scrabble folks out there, well, you're wrong. You're right. There's always going to be some are more than others. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting your physical actual labor here. So I think one of the things we want to look at though is there's a bar, right? So let's specifically look at the peerage bar, right? Because that's where a lot of this starts from, is those of us who are not peers trying to become peers. And okay, I heard all yes, we shouldn't try to become peers. We shouldn't want that. You're wrong. You're wrong.
I'm just going to say this outright. Bullshit. The only peerage it seems you're totally okay to say explicitly I want is a knight.
Right.
You could probably argue now Master of Defense as well.
Because martial testosterone driven peerages.
We'll say martial peerages. Yeah. Be all I aspire to be a knight.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So, but the idea is that over the years, over the last 50 years, the bar for that has raised. For all peerages has raised for various reasons, right? If we look at even the martial peerages, we have better training, we have better armor, we have more historical information, right? We look at the laurel, we have with the internet now that we didn't have 50 years ago. Yeah. So we have more stuff to work from. So the line for becoming those things has gone up significantly. In becoming a pelican, I think I'm not going to say it's harder now, but I think the work the type of work has changed drastically. It is the one that maybe hasn't changed as much because the stuff coming into it hasn't changed. And pelicans out there that are maybe older or younger, please correct me on that because I'm curious what your thoughts are. Yeah. But from the artisan perspective specifically, I think every time somebody does something, right? So when one person does the thing well, the bar for that thing goes up a little bit because now this person's done it, so you got to at least match that bar. This person does this well, it matches that bar. So that's it's always an arms race, essentially of time. And I think that goes into it when we start donating scrolls. So I have a very well-paying job. I can donate money and time and effort to the society because it doesn't hurt my day-to-day. I am the exception in a lot of things in that case. I know from down here in Osprey, there's probably a lot of folks on the coast that they literally had to quit jobs because they couldn't get time off to go to the SCA events. Please don't ever do that, but good God. Yeah. But they were scrapping and scrounging to get to events. There's a drastic difference in those two things. So I try to donate when I can and what I can so that others that can't can still enjoy that. Mm-hmm. But that shouldn't be expected of everybody. Just because I made a $100 donation doesn't mean the next 3 people can or whatever, right?
Right.
I think that's the hard part.
It is. And I see that Ari, Jocelyn, an artist should never feel like they have to purchase their peerage by donating their artist gifts. Yeah, they shouldn't. But I strongly suspect that a number of them do, and not purchasing by money, but purchasing by the amount of time and labor you have put into this. And, I'm not saying let's pay them going rate, market rate, everything. It would put a lot of things out of reach, frankly. Right. And I think it would to be an extent be to the detriment of the society. But I think that having an awareness of what you're asking for, hey, can you do this? And the person says no, you leave it at that.
Right.
Someone says, yeah, I could do this. Would you be willing to cover X? Mm-hmm. Say yes, or I can't quite afford that. Is there maybe a trade we could do? Is there something else? it's just, it feels like it's a very taboo subject in a lot of ways. And yeah, and it makes it hard.
I think that taboo is, if we look outside of society, I don't like talking about money with people. And
No.
I think there's a, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, maybe, in the mundane world, we've been taught to not talk about our pay, not about how much money we have, not about our bank accounts.
I was, to be completely blunt, I was raised that there are a few things you don't talk about. Full stop. Money is one of them.
Finances, religion, politics. That's the three.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And then I see also, looking at it, Tony White, there have been times where and then the second bit is I rarely ask for supplies. Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of it seems to come in as well. I have seen and spoken to artists who have been like, I've made stuff for the crown, and they have said nothing.
Right.
Like, not even a thank you, not a notice. The work just gets done, and that's that. And it's like, no, that is not kosher. And yeah, it's, as someone else said, it's hard to ask for money for art.
Right.
God,
yeah.
It's brutal.
I think there's two ways to approach that, though, right? So when you're donating stuff to the crown, if you are choosing to donate, now this may be a bit controversial, so feel free to roast me if you want to, but if you donate a thing, if you are choosing to donate a thing for whatever reason, so you're choosing to make a donation, you should expect nothing in return. That is my personal opinion. No recognition, no money, no nothing. If you get it, cool. Now, the other half of that, as royalty, as the person receiving the things, you should give something to that person, even if it's just public acknowledgement, right? But it should not be expected because you were giving a gift, you were giving a donation.
And so I see where you're coming from. And I think it would be the difference is going to be if you approach, we'll use a crown as an example. If you approach a crown and say, hey, I would like to donate a set of clothing to you, that's one thing. In this case, I'm speaking more along the lines of if the crown approaches an artist and says, right, hey, could you do a set of clothing for me? And then it's crickets.
Right.
And that is a problem.
Yeah.
I think largesse and having, little tags with it is great. Mm-hmm. You're telling whoever eventually gets it, where it came from, what it was, like, cool. But yeah.
Well, it's why. So, but again, right? So if that crown approaches us, hey, will you make this thing for me? And that's the extent of the conversation. They say, will you make X for me? Done. And there's no, and I will do X for you, which there should be, right? There should always be a second half to that conversation.
Right.
And as the artisan, I'm going to ask for, yes, if you will do X for me or Y for me or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Something other than like, I'm not going to say, hey, give me an award, because that's cheesy, but like,
no,
will you acknowledge me publicly? Will you donate? Can you cover the cost of materials? Whatever the other half of that is. If that half is not discussed, then you can't expect it. That's why. So like when I donate largesse, usually I donate. I do board games and various things. No surprise there. I put one of my Caliber's Corner business cards in there for two reasons. One, because it has a link to the game's rules in it, so it's useful for the person. But also, it becomes publicity for me.
Yeah,
I'm using that to publicize the channel, mm-hmm, because that's what I get out of it now. So even if I get no recognition, I've gotten something out of it, and that's what I know going into it. I donate stuff, send it to the ether, and I just don't care anymore, because it will eventually pay back somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, for me, it pays back if I see people playing games at an event. That now pays me back. Like that's what I want out of the donating of largesse, right?
Right.
I know that, and again, I know that's not everybody can do that. So I get there's a line there.
I think the fact that you are aware of it and you're like, hey, this is what I want and this is what I get.
Right.
Like that is perfectly acceptable.
Yep.
What it is that it feels like there's very much become a culture where it is it's taboo almost to ask, to very explicitly say, listen, this is going to take me time. This is going to take me, brain space. This is going to take all of this. What am I getting out of this? Like there is a limit to the amount that I think that you can do for the love of this. And this idea that artists should do work, the reward, the finished product should be the reward is enough, is frankly bullshit. And you see a chunk of it. And again, both modern and SCA, but it's like, no, just as some people have said in the comments, thank you is free. Bartering for service is great.
Right.
You need to find something that both parties will like, but I think that when asking for a commission or taking on, you need to be a little bit better at going, let's see, where is this going to be? Like, what am I doing it? I mean, I've got fabric sitting like right over there, and also my dining room, that I have to cut out for a clothing commission, which I volunteered to do because I love the people I'm doing it for. In return, they paid fabric, and they paid for the fabric, and I'm doing all the labor on it. It's fair. It gets my name out there. But I think that, maybe even a couple of years ago, I would have been like, can I make you clothes and I will pay for everything for it? And that, God, no.
Well, and I think everybody sort of goes through phases of that, and it's especially early in your peerage path, right? Yeah. You want to do all the things to get on the radars, right? And then I think as you grow towards more of in the adult range or the teenage range of that path, you start realizing, oh, this is killing me. Yeah. I need to back that down a smidgen. And then by the time you become a peer, you're like, this is really crazy. We should not do this at all. So I think it's like there's a sliding scale from new person to peer of what's okay in that range. And again, I think everybody's going to be different because of what you're available to do. If you're independently wealthy and want to throw all your money at the SCA, cool. Do it. Do that.
Great.
So I thought there's another thing. So the SCA is a 501c3, right? So we are a nonprofit educational society. Anything donated to the SCA, even if it's time and like materials, is tax deductible. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a tax person. Please don't sue me if that's incorrect. I'm not telling you exactly how to do this.
Tax professional talk to them.
Right. But donations to the SCA are tax deductible, right? So we probably can write off a lot of those materials, like your travel time to the SCA events is probably tax deductible. So that might be a thing, right? So even if you're donating scrolls to the kingdom, keep records of what the actual cost of that scroll would have been. Start looking at those costs, because there might be other ways to recoup financially from that if it's not directly from the person you're giving it to. But yeah, then there's a balance of like, we want to donate things, so we want to be better, right? That's my goal, is to make the SCA better. But yeah, you can't do that to your own detriment. And go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, and again, that's where I feel like a ton of it is. It's, you start talking to people and it becomes, well, I've had insert X experience where I've donated stuff, and it's, because I felt like I felt like it was expected of me. I've taken commissions because the person didn't take no for an answer. And it's like, no. And so, it's
something to look at too. And I'll speak as the big dumb fighter in the room. This is only expected of artisans. This is not put on the other half of the world, or the fighters, right? So as a fighter, we always look to the artisans to make us better, to make us prettier, to make the heraldic display, to make the thing. Now, there are a lot of fighters out there who are also artisans, right? So I'm not saying that those people are bad. I'm saying let's separate the two artisan, two individual groups here. That we expect our artisans to do so much to make the SCA look better and to be prettier. the other half, the fighters of the group, aren't reciprocating that, other than going out there and being pretty. That's all we do out of that. That's all we just show up and swing a stick. It's like there's not a way to do that. So I appreciate when I see fighters who also do some sort of art thing, or do some sort of service thing, or show up to do more than just fight.
Yeah, I've said before, like, the fighting is what's going to drag people, like, is going to catch people's eye for the SCA, but the arts are really what's going to end up keeping you.
It's because a bunch of fighters standing around in sweatpants is great for it gets them there initially. It doesn't keep them there.
So, and Susan made a comment. Yeah, the service sector is expected to give it for free too. Right. I am going to throw my husband under the bus at this moment, as he's Pelican. He got his Pelican and his Laurel at the same time, and he was an exchequer for a good 10 years between the barony and running Estrella War and a smaller war here in Atenveldt called Southern Crusades. The amount of work that went on behind the scenes was quite frankly insane. There would be, I would joke that there was Exchequer Fest. He and another of the Kingdom Exchequers would pretty much hole up on our couch for a couple of hours and go through everything. It's not, it's not like you're getting paid for something that's going to take you almost akin to a full-time job at times. Like, there are days where, there are times where it'll be that, and then you're at an event and you're working the whole time. Like, okay. Yeah, it's again, I think the generosity in the SCA is one of its best traits. It really is. I've learned things from people. I've been given things. I've had so much. And then as I get kind of older and I'm playing more on it, I find myself thinking, okay, this is great and I think we need to keep it, but how do we make it better?
Right.
And a huge part of it is understanding that art that you're asking for and that you're making, it's more than just the materials. There's
time. I think there's a couple ways we look at fixing this, right? I'm not going to say I know all the ways to fix all the problems in the world, but
no, God no.
The brunt of this fixing lies on our peers and our royalty, and I hate pushing it off on them, but hear me out. The thing we can do, so there's a lot I can do because I have a platform, right?
Right.
But there's not a lot that we as non-peers can do within the circles of the SCA because they're largely controlled by peers and royalty. Now, what we can do is those peers and royalty can start making steps to adjust and make that known, right? That this thing is that. So, as royalty, if you receive something, make sure it's recognized, make sure it's acknowledged, and make sure it's paid for. And I'm going to say this. So, I have a theory about royalty and nobility in the SCA. The more noble you are, as your station increases in the SCA, you should be paying for services to you, right?
Okay.
Whether it's retainers, whether it's your retainers and retinue, your people who are doing stuff for you. And I'm not saying pay them in cash. I'm not saying pay them in American currency. I'm saying pay them in gifts, pay them in coin of the realm, pay them in largesse from you, right? Or just acknowledgement of it. That's payment, right? For your retinue and for your artisans. And a lot of the royalty do this, especially like our crowns, because they give out their Meridian Majesty or Sovereign's Pleasures or their little special award, right? That's great. So what I try to do as a noble, as a baron of the court now, is when I have somebody help me do a thing, tote a thing, help set up a thing, whatever, I go to my treasure box that I gamble with and I pay them coin out of my treasure chest. Because that's what I should do as a noble, right? And it seems silly, But I think that helps us at least acknowledge that a service was rendered to us and we're paying for it, even if it's in some fake plastic beads on a wire. It's at least something.
I think that that's a really good way to start bridging that gap. It's having a bunch of little chookies that you can give out. I mean, I've got stuff where I've got a big, totally SCA, anachronistic, massive treasure necklace, which is covered with coins and everything, coins and gifts and everything that my husband got, when he was fighting for me or he was out of kingdom. And it's like, I love wearing it. It's big, it's ridiculous, it's heavy. But it's that I can look at anything and be like, okay, you got this for this tournament. This was so-and-so's vigil. This was going here. Like, that's totally acceptable. It's acknowledging that nothing's working. Nothing's in a vacuum. You can't do art in a vacuum, no matter how much you may think you're able to. And so, yeah, you need to go, here's this. Let's figure this out. Let's accept everything.
Well, so from the royalty side, but looking at the peer side too, I think one of the things that the Laurels can do when they're looking at their candidates, looking at people for in their path, is make sure they're considering that, right? There are people who are not good at certain things. There are people who are not like. I may be an amazing artisan, but I'm crap at teaching classes, right? And it's something I'm good at. There's people. I mean, I'm the exact opposite of that, actually. But personally,
right.
I'm a decent artisan, amazing at teaching classes. You give me a handout, I'll teach class. I cannot know the material. I can teach class off of it. It's sort of my superpower. But there are people who are the exact opposite of that. So I think we need to make sure we're looking at donations, right? So or art. The art they're doing is one part of their path. Classes are one part of their path. The research is one part of the path, right? So if they do less classes, they should do slightly more research, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's always like a sliding scale there of what's available, but we need to make sure we're taking that like art and donations bucket and capping it. It can only, I don't care if they do this much of it, they only get this much credit for it. This is it. This is the maximum credit you can get for this thing.
Yeah, it can't. You can't use that as a litmus, I guess,
right.
As someone who for whatever reason cannot afford, or and not necessarily financially, but in whatever way, who cannot give the same amount for whatever reason, shouldn't be
right. Because I can give more shouldn't set the bar for everybody else.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Exactly. All right, I want to pause for a second and address something in the comments. So because it's bothering me that I'm looking at. All right, so. The SCA stands on a tripod. Yes, you're absolutely correct, Susan. And my yellow belt and my pelican peer are currently yelling at me because I said that the way I said that. Well, let me clarify what I meant. And if you look back on Calabar's Corner, there's a whole show about the SCA being a tripod. I've done a show on this. I get it. When I say other half in this context, I'm talking about the artisan fighter conversation, right? Because that's where we're looking at for the emotional labor of the artwork and the fighters that don't necessarily reciprocate. And I've had that argument with a lot of people. Service folk are a whole nother bucket and a whole nother like tier of crazy, myself included, of making sure stuff gets done. And the emotional labor of service in the SCA is even more so than I would argue than the artisans, not to put them on pistols, but good God. We can't function without our service people. I completely agree with you. Again, I are one. So apologies. I said that way, and I didn't mean for that to be offensive. But there's different things in this conversation. That's what I was looking at, but my apologies. Okay. So cycling back. So I think that what we really need to do, and again, you and I having this conversation helps because I hope people are hearing this, and I hope people can change over this. But it's going to take us changing our mentality of what we can do, what we can ask for. And I think the sort of concrete things we can do is making sure we start figuring out what things would have cost, right? So if you do a scroll, do the math on it. Don't charge that, right? Because somebody's going to pay $600 for a scroll. They're not going to do it, right? We can't do that. But start asking those questions of, hey, this is how much I've spent on these scrolls in the last year, right? Because I think and document that. Put it somewhere, and yeah, that may piss somebody off. It may piss off some of the laurels somewhere because you valued your work, and they're the problem now. But
yeah, and it got mentioned earlier. Jocelyn. So Ari had said, like, yeah, sit down. She goes, I encourage every artist to sit down and do a real analysis, what their art is worth, even if all you do is donate it. Figure out what it would really cost, if you were to sell it, and then. And someone else, Lord Fry of Kent, I recently attracted a lot of hate when I asked an artisan to not call it gouging. And yeah, it's like these conversations, be aware of what it is, of what you're asking for and what you're giving.
Right.
And it's going to result in a lot, in many, many I think it's going to result in a lot less burnout eventually. But again, I know so many people who are like, yep, did that, donated huge amounts of time, effort, got nothing in response.
And I think when they hit that peerage point, they finally get their shiny bauble, right? They are so burnt out. Yeah. Then they go away for some period. And that's where I think we as a society are losing out. We're getting all this value out of a person, handing them their fancy, fancy hat, fancy necklace, and then they go, all right, cool, I'm done now, and go away. And that's the exact opposite of what we want.
Our thing.
Yeah, disappears. Exactly. And that's the exact opposite of what we want to happen. Mm-hmm. We're acknowledging people as peers because they're the ones now that are leading the society.
But we have taken so much out of them that by the time we recognize them for their work, they're like, as someone just said, it's not shiny anymore. It's you know what? You've reached that point. You're just tired, bitter. You've done everything. And what? And then you perpetuate the cycle because, well, we gave them this. This was what was required to get to it. And there's no one around anymore to say, this is wrong.
Right.
This is not how we should have done this.
Well, we have the same peers who initially caused that problem that are still the ones hanging around.
Yeah.
And the service folks that are supporting it, right? We have the service folks that are making sure the events happen because they feel like they have to. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole topic too, the feeling like you have to.
And to pull it in artists, yeah, that's a same thing as well. Like, okay, well, I'm going to do these things because I really should. To go to the wall. Well, I need to donate my time and my labor and all of this because I eventually want to become this.
Right.
Like, no. I mean, you should, but you need to find, but it needs to be properly, I think, appreciated. Yes. The comment on gendered expectations. Okay. So
go ahead. I have thoughts about this comment specifically. So go ahead.
And so this is gonna I'm gonna rummage it back towards, again, sort of a lot of mundane discussions on this topic. Women's work is undervalued, flat out. Knitting, so fiber stuff, any of that.
That's mundane though. It's a mundane problem.
Yeah, you are going to have a much easier time selling a sword than you are a completely hand-sewn set of clothing for something about equivalent to value, to what its market, its real-time value is, and it's so yeah, adopt a new fighter. Teach. I like the adopt a new fighter by teaching them to sew, but yeah, like, okay, so if you do something involving, and I'm using fiber as a very general thing because it's usually what it is, but it's so yeah, what would the actual labor cost be for fiber work? I mean,
It's
You're
absurd
not
is the
going to
answer.
play. It's obscene. I mean,
Yeah.
the shawl I'm wearing right now, which is a modern pattern, is probably 40 hours of work. I mean, yarn, that's not counting the yarn and everything, but it's like, no,
Yeah.
there is absolutely no reason that the sword should have a value placed on it that's higher than that set of hand done clothing. I mean, like, people are willing to pay that. I mean, I know.
I mean, admittedly, I will speak with my big dumb fighter brain for a minute, going, but ooh, shiny sword is why.
And and I understand it. It's you look at that and you go, here's this, here's all of this. Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Like, I understand how a garment is made. I've seen it. I get it. I can theoretically do that. Right. I can't actually, like, I'm garbage at sewing, but like I can do that. I can't just make a sword. I don't understand that process. I don't have the materials or tools for it. Like so I can't fathom that. So that sword. So if we're looking at a sword and shirt of equal value, they're both $500 sword, right, or $500 items. The sword to me is higher valued because I can't do it, whereas I theoretically could do this one, right? That's to me that's the difference.
And that's actually a really good point. It's
same thing with like a pottery thing, So a pottery thing and a sword thing of equal value. They're equal value to me because I can't make either of them. Right. I think that's a thing. All right. So the thing I want to say about the adopted fighter thing, and I say this because I'm having Duchess Maisie on in a few weeks, because that's where that adopted fighter thing, at least that's where I'm hearing it coming from recently. So Maisie started a group called Adopt a Jock that I think is amazing, is a great place. However, I get it. I get why some people are seeing this as a negative thing, because it's expecting the labor from artisans for free. Not the case. Actually, it was set up as a way for people, if they had and wanted to sew, to come sew for people who needed things sewn for them. And those two get to do what they want to. So if you want to value your thing at a price, you're welcome to have that conversation, but it's not required, right? It was left to the artisan to do that. Most of them are not. And like Maisie's turning out stuff for fighters because she wants to, and needed a place to do that other than like her husband and Car and a couple of people around her. So she's made some stuff for me. I have an amazing hat back there that she made, and I appreciate her for that. And I've pushed it out multiple times and thanked her for it and whatever. But the adoptive fighter thing is I get leading or fueling this fire, right? Because it's expecting free labor, because you hear adopt and that's free. There is nothing coming back from the fighter. I think we got to look at that as it's a thing you can do if you want to, but you're not required to.
Yeah.
Now, if there are artisans out there who are feeling pressured to do that, and you say no, and that's become negative on you, please let me know. This is a genuine request. If that has happened to you, specifically around the Adopt a Jock program or things are like it, please message me. I'd like to know that. I'd like to, so I can help get that back to people who are running those things, to let them know that's what's happening. Because I think that's important too. That it's not pressured, it's not negative space. It's supposed to be a positive space to feed those, to make the SE better and look better. But it should not be at a detriment, right? And that's the thing there. So, all right, I'll get off that soapbox for a second. But I'll have Maisie on in a couple weeks. I think mid-December. I got to get to check that in on that. But so if you have questions with there, or sort of have ideas or problems with that, please come to that show and let me know, and let her know, so we can address them. Because I think it's important to have these conversations. I don't want to just hype a program if there are problems with it.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense. And context, I think it also gives an idea that context is important. You hear adopt a fighter and you think one thing, but in reality, the way it's supposed to be is a little bit different.
Right.
I see a couple of people mentioning, that the issue, part of the issue is that, yeah, I can walk into a store and pay $20 for something. Why would I want to pay for this? And I think that's a different, but somewhat related still, conversation on it. It's changed our value. Yeah.
it has mundanely changed our value of a shirt. So if I can get this shirt for $20 at Walmart, why am I going to pay you $300 to make me a similar shirt? Right? That's a shirt of a similar structure. That's ridiculous. Again, having made those shirts or having watched my wife sew those shirts, I get it. But not everybody has seen that.
Yeah, it becomes, and so again, I think more you see videos popping up. I've seen a number out of European reenactment groups that kind of go, let's do insert this from start to finish. And it gives you sort of an idea how much it is, but like what goes into it. And I'm going to say that at the same time that, dude, weaving out a warp weighted loom takes a lot of time. If you want something completely handmade, yeah, you're paying for it. You're paying through the fucking teeth for it. And it's going to be worth every penny. It's also going to hold up better, but yeah, it is hard to say, well, I can buy this at a store. Why would I pay this? Why would I pay for this? Well, it's a mindset, and there's going to need to be a change of it, and I understand that. But I think very much starting to have a conversation about it, about saying, hey, the way this is working isn't quite kosher. It's not quite, it's maybe not working in the way that we've forced it to work for years.
Right. Yeah. Forced it to work is a good way to say that. We forced it to work because it's had to. We've expected. Somebody brought up feast in the idea, right? Or in the chat there. Yeah. We set a precedence 55 years ago of how SCA events are going to function. And yeah, that's changed over those 55 years. But even in the last 10 years, 20 years, we've sort of set a format and aren't willing to make shifts to that. So we're trying to do something we could do 20 years ago for $5 that we can't do for $5 anymore, folks. Stuff's gone up. Prices have changed. Prices have increased. Or people's time have changed. We also have less people doing it. So what was 100 people doing work?
Because again, I think because less people at this point are also willing to go, yeah, I'm going to give my time and my effort and all of this for absolutely nothing other than a pat on the back. No, if you want to keep the really good artists around and you want to keep people in, you're going to need to change and you're going to need to acknowledge it. And I'm not saying pay everyone market rate, but I'm saying artists should be aware of, and I shouldn't say market rate, I should say what it's actually valued.
Right.
Because market rate will often
those are two different things. Yeah.
Like have them go, here's this, this is what it's worth. Let's find something that works for the pair of us.
Right.
Understand this is time, this is effort. This is not something you're doing. Very few people are doing it as a normal 9-to-5 job. But God knows you're expected to put in at least as much to make it work. And then pay it, send it, sell it, if you can manage to sell it for a pittance.
Right. Yeah, so I know Meridians, and there's a little inter-kingdom anthropology here. There's different cultures in each kingdom about what we donate, what's largesse, what scrolls. Like in Meridians, we have a box of scrolls we give out because every ward we have, it goes a scroll with it. I've just been amazed by that. So I know there's some kingdoms but I know the West Kingdom, they do all promissory stuff and it's done at some point or you get it yourself. So there's always differences there. But it just amazes me the amount of money value that goes out. It's given both directions. And I can see definitely as an artisan it would be tough to keep up, right? Like I said, I'm very much on the service path. I'm not on the artisan path. I dabble in the artisan path occasionally, but I can see where, what I can afford to do would be undervalued by what somebody like looking at people that are putting out these much more higher valued scrolls with their fancy shell gold from Tibet or wherever on them, Thailand and whatnot. I can't keep up with that.
Yeah.
But but I also shouldn't have to. Like that's the thing. I shouldn't have to. Because there's ways to do it. Something I have seen here, though, that I think is really positive is we are also a very giving community. overall, right? So we've done a couple fundraisers in the last few months, and we've put out like I think over $10,000 worth of just money to charity, flat just cash donations to charities, because that's who we are as a people. I think that's who the SCA is as a people, and Meridian specifically.
It is flat out one of the best things. I mean, look at the fundraisers that get done. Look at what we raise. You know, there are events that raise money for certain things. Like all of that is awesome. And it should be. It's part of what makes it as good as it is.
Right. So where I was going with that was that one thing that I also have seen is people patronizing in the positive side, not the negative side, because that word's become a negative word, unfortunately, but being patrons of the arts. So people who are not artisans, and you're going to get my cat butt here, enjoy cat butt. People who are not artisans,
happens.
She, this is her office, and I just live here. Now she's going to lay on my mouse. Just lay down. You're good. Just go ahead. Thank you. All right. People who are not artisans supporting artisans, right? So we had a whole tournament. Oh my God! Stop clicking buttons. We had a whole tournament during COVID called the Tournament of Mariposa, which is all about making the SCA prettier. Mm-hmm. And this gentleman, Arlen, who has a full name who I cannot remember because it's a big Roman name, but Arlen, the Honorable Lord Arlen, basically put out, hey, I've got a couple $100 and I want to support some artisans. Do a cool thing, and I'm going to pick a winner. Was essentially the thing. Prettier, make something prettier, and I'm going to pick a winner of that. And a couple of people donated the prize as well. That's what we can do as non-artisans to support the artistic community. Is saying, hey, we need some scrolls for the kingdom. I can't make them, but I'll put up $100 for supplies for somebody who can, or as a prize for this contest or whatever. I think that's what we can do is becoming a patron of the arts. And I think that helps, right? Because it gives us something. We're not going to get dollar for dollar what those scrolls are worth, but it's better than nothing at this point. I think it's a step up.
It is. And as we've said, there's a lot of stuff that's given. There's a lot of stuff which, quite frankly, is hard to afford. I mean, for God's sake, we spent more on my husband's plurican elevation than I think almost more than we did on our wedding.
Right.
Which was totally worth it in all defense, because he got pelican and laurel on the same day. And I spent a lot of money on fabric. But that I can't justify that in a modern sense. And someone mentioned, having guilt when things are given freely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I completely get that. It gets a little weird. You're like, wait, I'm getting this for free? Okay.
Yeah, I want to pay this. I want to give back to these people. Yeah.
Right. And part of the reason I like to kind of go off on the side a little, part of the reason I love barter is because you can find a way to make both parties feel like they're coming out at least even, if not better.
Right.
Someone's thanking the scribes who made scrolls. Atenveldt gives scrolls out with everything. Mm-hmm. And we also on the back write who made it, who did the calligraphy. And that gets read in as well, which is wonderful.
Yep, same.
It's that little bit of like, hi, you did this. It'll get paraded around. Everyone will go, ooh, ah.
We also have a Scribble gallery that gets put up after the event as well, for those who aren't at the event. Nice. Yeah, Meridian's Scribble gallery on Facebook puts all the scroll and the who made it on there. So actually, it's more focused on the person who made it, not the person who got the award. Like they don't even mention the person who got the award in the Scribble gallery. It's on the scroll, obviously, but like
right.
More about who made the scroll,
but who did the work on it, which frankly is wonderful.
So I think that's really what we these conversations need to happen, right? All of this, I was cornered about having these conversations. So take this back to your local kingdoms. Talking to my viewers out there. Take this back to your local kingdoms. Start finding ways to pay your artisans, even if it's just in trade or in fake coins from Chuck E. Cheese. It's still better than nothing. If you're a peer out there, specifically those in the Laurel, or honestly the Service Path as well.
If you're a peer, full stop.
If you're a peer, value donations, sure, but don't value them over other works. And find your artisans and some folks that can't donate, and find ways to help them. Find other ways for them to provide value. And then don't, if you're those who can't donate, don't feel bad about that. Do what you can, and only what you can. We as the SCA need to make sure we're not leaving those people behind and acknowledging people who can afford it. This is not a pay-to-play organization.
Yeah, it's very much a pay it forward. You're not, okay, cool. How can I make things better? How can I make our artists, how can we make our artists appreciated or feel appreciated, and go for all of that, so that when they eventually get a peerage, they don't pretty much say so long and thanks for all the fish.
Yep. All right. Oh yeah, and also write award recommendations.
Yeah.
Tell your crown. If you see an artist doing things, tell your crown.
Yeah.
Do that. Yeah. And if there's somebody from another kingdom, tell their crown and tell your crown. Tell both crowns. More letters is better. Tell your friends to tell the crowns.
Which is why also, if you're giving a largesse, make sure to stick your name on it. Mm-hmm. Tiny little cards are wonderful. And I say this as someone who's terrible with that stuff. I'm atrocious at self-promotion. But yeah.
You can get business cards from Vistaprint for like $20.
Yeah, I really need to.
It's not hard.
I really, really need to, especially because the capybara badge passed. So now I have a badge with a capybara. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just using this on everything.
The Herald in me doesn't like you anymore, just to be clear here.
Please note, I have the defining capybara.
I know you. I knew what badge you were talking about. I saw those conversations. I didn't know it was you.
Yep, that was me.
Okay. Anyways. All right. I'm going to do show promotions and we'll wrap this thing up because we were just at an hour. And I'm going to go swing a stick at people here in a minute. So I'm already late for that. So, all right. So coming up next on Calabar's Corner, Baroness Vermouth, the most excellent of excellencies, will be returning for Road to Retention. Her special guest is Mistress Giovanna, which I have to say that picture I found is the best picture I've ever found. That is her riding a pelican, and that's just friggin' adorable. So enjoy that. So tune in for that. I'm happy Vermouth is back. She had crownless and a wedding in like a matter of 2 weeks. She's had a very busy couple weeks, so I'm happy to see her returning to the show. I enjoyed my guest hosting of her show, but she is much better at it than I am. So look forward to that. The following Sunday, so 2 weeks from today, I'll be joined by Lord Elfric Hort. Elfric Hart. Sorry, I always do that because it's an O. But talk with the Royal Foresters. So the Royal Foresters are a new guild here in Meridies. So this will be a little Meridian specific, but there is I think Atlantean has one, the East Kingdom has one. There's a couple of Forester guilds around, so similar conversation. We're talking about the Foresters and sort of what they do within the SCA and within the mundane world. A special note on that one, the timing of that one will be a little off because we have to be off site by noon that day. And because I'll be in the Eastern time zone, stupid time zones, that's when the show will be starting. So we're figuring, there's also apparently no signal on site, so we're figuring that out. So pay attention to the postings for that, wherever, I don't know where things are. Pay attention to the postings for that, and the time will get updated as I have a firm thing for that. And of course, as always, if you want to support Calabar's Corner and KK Productions, look us up on Patreon. Patreon.com/KK Productions and join the grand wall of patrons. And if you can't do that, you're welcome to look us up on Redbubble and get some stickers. Search KK Productions on Redbubble. Or if you just want to see me being ridiculous in under 3-minute videos, check me out on TikTok at Calbarger. I think it's all of the things. That's all the things. All right. Ivor, I want you to sum up the show in like a sentence or less. Go.
Remember that your artists don't exist in a vacuum, and please, for the love of all that is capybara, appreciate them and make it very clear that you appreciate them and the work they do.
The love that is all in capybara. That's a thing you just said on my show.
Yes, it is. You asked one sentence, and I'm not very good with that.
You took advantage of it. You're what? Yeah. No, thank you for that. All right. Hell the capybara. Ivor, thank you for this. Thank you for being willing to have this conversation. I think that we need more people like you to do this. And thank you all out there for watching. We appreciate you tuning in this week and every other week. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, comment, push all the buttons. Facebook and YouTube, look us up. We appreciate you tuning in. But for now, this has been Ivor and Cal in Cal Burr's Corner. Have a good day, everybody.